North Korea has yet to respond to U.S. requests for information regarding missing soldier Travis King. Officials say the lack of information is deeply concerning. King crossed the border into North Korea on Tuesday. The Pentagon claims he may have been planning to do so for some time. He was under orders to return to Texas after serving time for assault in South Korea. Joining us now is CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent and Face the Nation moderator, Margaret Brennan. Margaret, always a pleasure to chat with you. So tell us, first of all, just what more we're learning about this missing soldier. What are investigators also looking at to try and determine what exactly happened?
Well, the Pentagon is not revealing a lot other than what you just laid out. But we do know through our own reporting here at CBS, including some conversations I've had with sources overseas, that the working assumption at this point is that this private second class attempted to defect to North Korea. He didn't just cross into the country, that there was an intent there to seek haven in North Korea. The question of how long in advance this was planned may come down to establishing that timetable. I know our David Martin and his team have been working on this in detail to nail down exactly when that tour group purchase of tickets was made. Remember, he went there as a civilian after leaving the airport just outside Seoul, Incheon Airport, where he was supposed to board a flight back to Texas. And it was after he'd gotten through customs, according to the Pentagon, that he left. He was not under guard at that point. He was traveling back to Texas with the ultimate plan in place of leaving the U.S. Army, due in part to some of his recent legal challenges.
Margaret, given that it seems that this was a defection, it's being assumed as such, how does that change things for the U.S. government in their communications with North Korea? And how concerning is it that North Korea hasn't responded to U.S. requests?
Well, I know I've been speaking to a number of former U.S. officials who've had contact with North Korea over the years to ask, how does this normally play out? What would you be doing in terms of communicating? Because it was 2018, the last time the United States retrieved Americans from North Korea. One of them who did defect in 2018 was only in custody for about a month. He had entered by China and then was released swiftly thereafter. But that was a civilian. In the case of this soldier, there may be not just propaganda value, there may be the assumption that perhaps he has some knowledge that is of use to the North Korean military. That's not clear at this very low level that he would have any valuable intelligence whatsoever. But that broader question of what is the intent of Travis King and then what is the intent of the North Koreans is something investigators are trying to understand here. In terms of what happened that day, one of the things investigators would look at is whether on the North Korean side there was any kind of preparation to take in someone crossing the border. Remember, he was not fired upon. Was that just because he moved swiftly? Was it a surprise or was it planned? And ultimately, why does it matter? Well, it does affect how hard the United States pushes to get him to return to the United States. Certainly, his mother has been on other news networks asking for his return to the U.S., but it isn't clear if this private actually wants to defect and stay in North Korea, or if ultimately he may regret his decision to cross and ultimately want to be repatriated.
All right. Margaret Brennan, thank you.